Welcome to Success in Chaos, a healthcare podcast where each episode is dedicated to unlocking success amid rapid change and uncertainty. I'm Angela Adams, the CEO of Inflow Health.
And I'm Candice Garcia, owner of Tungsten QI Partners and Quality Director for the ACR Learning Network. Now, our guest today is Melonie Lagalante. She is the Assistant Vice President of Diagnostic and Outpatient Services at St. Tammany Health System in Southern Louisiana. With a track record of elevating care delivery, Melonie brings a deep expertise in cross-functional leadership, process improvement, and workforce development. She's a champion for aligning people, technology, and purpose to drive high-performance care in complex health systems. Welcome, Melonie, and thank you for being here with us today.
Wow, thank you. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to our conversation. It's always fun to get to chat with you.
Thank you so much, Melonie, for jumping on. You are one of our favorite leaders out there that both Candice and I have gotten to work with. So such a pleasure to have you on today. We like to start with something a little bit fun so the audience can get to know you a little bit better. We're going to ask you to give us two truths and a lie, and then we're going to guess to see which one we think is the lie.
Okay, we do this.
We
do this here. Yeah. No, this is something that we do.
Awesome.
So, I mean, there's an art to it. So let me think. Okay. My mother is an immigrant. I am a marathon runner. And I have traveled to all but 2 continents.
She's such a good poker player. Did you see, I was watching her face to try to see if I could catch the...
I'm terrible at poker. Lying and telling.
I don't think that you are a marathon runner.
I think that she is. I think that she has not visited. I think she's visited every continent. I don't think she's missing two. I think she's a traveler. Yeah.
All right, Melonie.
My mother is from Germany. She's a German immigrant. My dad was in the Air Force and met her in Germany and brought her back to Bogalusa, Louisiana, which is small town in Louisiana. I thank you, Angela. I am a marathon runner. I don't know what it is about me that gives off that maybe I don't run, but I should say I've run a marathon. I am a marathon.
That makes you a runner. Yes, that makes you a marathon runner.
Done. Checkity check. And when I was 40, I set that goal, and I will never set that goal again. I have not traveled to all but 2 continents. We are looking forward to our next life and making plans to start doing more and more traveling. My husband and I definitely love to explore and kind of immerse ourselves in other cultures. So a lot of travel on the bucket list, but I will never go to Antarctica. So I'll never make it to all of them.
Okay. And why has that been tossed off the list?
I'm freakishly cold natured, and Colorado is about as much as I can endure. Snow skiing is it. It's the heated, the finger warmers, the toe warmers, the 17 layers. I can't do it. So
100%.
I'm with you, girl.
Just so you know, the reason I didn't think it was marathon, because I'm like, I know how much she works. I don't think she has time to run marathon.
No, it is a huge time commitment to train to that. So yeah. So anyway,
well,
yeah, we do that with our new leaders. The art is don't get too descriptive. When you start getting real big descriptions, it falls apart. So
well, and you kept your facial expressions the same when you said each of them. So I was like, ooh, she's good. She's proud. Well, let's kick off this conversation. I think this podcast is all about leaders in healthcare and even company leaders around healthcare that have driven phenomenal success in the midst of the very chaotic healthcare environment. It is a complex, adaptive system, as you know. We have always been impressed, Candice and I, in working with the team at St. Tammany and working with you, on just how far, as a community-based hospital, you guys have been able to take your team as far as success in quality, even in lean concepts. And so I would just love to start with, why do you think you've had such success amidst the chaos of healthcare um, in your tenure there?
Yeah, I think that um, if you look at us on paper, it's like, oh, a small little community hospital in Covington, Louisiana. You know, we've never viewed ourselves that way. I think I've been here 20 years, and as long as I can think back, our senior executive team has been incredibly competitive. It's kind of
Mm,
anything you can do, we can do better. And so we've never approached things being intimidated by our size. Oh, journey to high reliability. Of course, we're going to do that. Daily safety huddles. Of course, we can do that. Um, so all the things that you're reading and you're learning through Kaufman Hall or advisory board daily briefs or whatever it might be coming across, we always take the mindset that, yeah, of course, that's best, that's evidence based, we need to embrace it. And so we've never been dwarfed by our size or by our situation, and we've just kind of brought an attitude of, not only are we going to do it, but we're going to excel. I have a feeling through our conversation, we're going to talk a lot about our culture, because it's really what drives everything in our organization. And it's been so hardwired. But with our very positive culture, we have a lot of longevity. And so that competitive that I felt 20 years ago when I first started, that competitive nature amongst, our senior leaders really is, infused into all of us. So as we've all grown up in the organization, we all believe we're that, the little train that could. And so we take things, we're smart enough to know we can't, do everything, but we hone in on what are the things that are going to really help us drive our mission, vision, and values, and how can we chip away at it a little bit at a time, and but really commit to it. So
my gosh.
that seems to be kind of the secret sauce for us.
I mean, a commitment to mission, vision, and values is so hard to operationalize. I feel like so many organizations say it, especially large health organizations. It is so hard to mobilize people around those. What are some of the things that you have done, or what are some of the ways that you interact with your staff to get everybody on the same page, moving in the same direction?
It's our and we a few years ago we kind of retooled our mission, made it very, very more refined, and it's ultimately we're the heartbeat of the community. And we really feel that ownership to the community. So if you look at our staff, the vast majority of the people that work here probably were born or at least raised, went to high school here. They've been in the community. Our hospital was founded by a group of community providers, and we have stayed very, very true to that. Even though we've grown our employed physician group, tremendously, especially in recent years. At our core, we are the community provider, and we have maintained a lot of allegiance to our community physicians, who we've relied on to really help grow our organization. And so mission, vision, and values, that sounds kind of cliche, and it can kind of, get a little, it could just sound cliche, but I think just community is what we're about. That's who I am. That's who my coworkers are. That's who we serve. That's who shaped our organization. So that's kind of our driving point. The other thing that's been a constant since I've been here are just, we kind of set everything up on the 5 pillars. We're an old Quint Studer hospital. Hardwiring Excellence is a book that I still recommend to young up-and-coming leaders. And it's amazing how 20 years goes by so fast. It feels like, it just feels like that's still the most relevant book. But kind of the 5 pillars: care of people, finance, growth, engagement, safety, first and foremost. Those are kind of the 5 things that drive all of our operations. And then from there, we kind of trickle it down and organize ourselves, amongst our clinical service lines. And we have, I think, 6 or 7, primary care, oncology, cardiology, surgical services, women and children's services. And that's kind of how we organize ourselves. And then from there, we go into each clinical service line and talk about how do you optimize operations. So I really do have to credit our CEO, Joan Kaufman. She's been here, I think, 8 years. And she's really kind of taken us and organized us in this way. So she came in, into this really strong culture that was ready for it. And then she set up the framework for how we operate today. So
That's
I'm quite proud.
Yeah. As you should be.
I don't know if that comes through or not.
No, you absolutely should be. And I love, there's a couple things that you touched on that I love. I think we've seen the longevity in your team. There's not many health systems that Candace and I get to work with in which we see that type of, some people there like 20, 30 years, like, and working at the same hospital very happily and very like much passionate about what you guys do and very aligned to that mission, vision, values. I think that that's something that we've lost our way in a little bit in healthcare. And there's a lot of emotional stress and overburdening of clinicians that we just don't feel from your team. We do feel that competitive spirit, which I love. And we also hear out there a lot. I mean, Candace from her work with the ACR and even her work with Stanford, and me coming from talking to, multiple health systems a week with Inflow Health, we hear a lot of times some of the community-based hospitals say, oh, I mean, like, I don't know if we're ready for, I don't know if we're ready for AI, or I don't know if we're ready for that type of engagement. I don't know if we're ready to be part of this big quality program. And we have just never felt that from your team. So it's a really energizing group every time we get together. And we're always astounded. Me and Candace will kind of look at each other sometimes because your team is doing stuff so far advanced as compared to baseline around things like radiology follow-up, incidental findings, lung cancer screen program. And we just kind of look at each other and we're like, man, their program is so mature compared to what we see as baseline. And it really is really impressive what you guys have built and done. I want to switch gears a little bit here because we are a podcast. We want to stay relevant to what's happening in the day-to-day news. So I'm just curious, in the midst of all of the navigating threats coming from reimbursement changes, Medicaid, tariffs, everything coming out of Washington, D.C., how have you guys responded to that and kept people focused during this time, and kept, success still happening despite the, I guess, uncertainty?
We are very, 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 very conservative, very prudent. Our CFO does a very nice job of just keeping us on a monthly basis. Just this is, hey, this is where we are, but this is what could happen. So she often is, she gets a bad rap because she's the gloom and doom. We're celebrating all of our big accomplishments, and then she comes in, with a big dose of reality. But for the last several years, we've been very, very prudent. We've been really talking for a long time on we've got to be able to live, on Medicare reimbursement. We are very fortunate where we sit. We do have a very generous payer mix relative to the rest of the state, probably relative to our region. But for the last several years, we've got to assume it's Medicare and Medicare only. And now we're facing, 340B is a big question mark for us. Like you mentioned, the tariffs and what does that mean, especially for our supplies. We are just, operational efficiency has been the name of the game. And then for the last several years, we have been challenging ourselves. Okay, well, here's budget, but we want everybody to be at 95% of that. And so, we kind of look at everything at a dollar per unit of service type basis. And so either you're at 95%, managing your expenses, or your volume, you've grown your volume, you've grown your service lines, and it's keeping your dollar per unit of service expense at baseline. So, where I sit, the bulk of my business is on the outpatient side. And so we're focused on growth and how do you create an excellent patient experience? How do you create an excellent referring provider experience for their patient? How do you cultivate that strong relationship where those providers feel confident that they're sending their patient to a place that's going to get them what they need, so that people choose to walk in over and over and over again. So that's kind of been the name of the game. They're choosing to reach out to us. They want to come to us on the outpatient side. So not only do we want to make it excellent, but we want to get them in today. Let's do today's work today. So growth and access to care have been kind of our driving mantra for the last couple of years. And then on the inpatient, on the radiology and laboratory side, it's really looking at our contracts. How can we go back to our vendors? How can we partner with them, engage them to want to partner with us, to maybe craft things in a different way where we can recognize some expense savings that maybe wasn't there in the original draft of the contract. And so we have had some good success stories with some key vendors. I would call out my friends at Siemens, and then also Abbott has done a nice job of really wanting to come to us and not just sell us things and give us our widgets and shake our hand and say have a nice day until our PO meets again. They really do want to talk about what they're selling us really being utilized to its fullest potential. Are we really capitalizing on it? Are we really maxing the opportunity that we have with them? So those are just two great examples where they have really demonstrated that they're in it as a partnership with us. So
That's incredible. I love that. I think a lot of times hospitals lose focus on the patient being the central part of their entire mission. And so I love that community and the patient have stayed central to that for you. And I think if you keep that as your mission and your central point, then all of the rest of it kind of falls into place. The growth, the revenue, the utilizing of services, like all of the things that you need to be there to run the business of healthcare, they kind of fall into place under the fact that the patients want to be there.
well, and the other piece of that, in all of the cost containment efforts and the operational efficiency efforts and the growth efforts that we're putting forward, never have we said, okay, we're going to have to change how we're delivering care. We're going to change it from this to that because it's going to save us a few dollars.
Yeah.
We don't touch the care delivery side, and we keep looking at what are the innovations, what's out there, what can we invest in that's going to make it, smarter, faster, better, more reliable. Inflow Health is a great example of that. So how can we partner with whatever's out there to help us, drive our care consistently, but in a more efficient way. So, and I think our patients feel that, and our providers definitely feel that. And then it's just confidence keeps building in the care that we're delivering, and those relationships just get fortified. So it's kind of like that circle of love. You get what you give. You get what you give. So.
If all of healthcare was designed around the circle of love, I think we'd all be in a much better position. But I'm hearing you say, like we say the circle of love and it's this, but it's the mission and vision. Then it's the culture. Then it's the organization of all the people. Then it's like thinking about innovation and our constraints of budget and payers, and really kind of consistently examining not just where you're going, but like what do we already have in place to continue to change, improve, restructure the things that we have in place to continue to get us closer and closer to our goals. I mean, am I getting that right? It feels like it's very multifaceted, and you're still able to show up as a mentor and leader for the people who work for you.
I mean, healthcare is hard. It's hard.
It's hard.
Like, it dawned on me a few years ago, and it was kind of like, golly, like we are never going to get there with healthcare. I can remember the Accountable Care Act, back in 2008
Yeah.
when we refined all of our operations to be compliant with it. And I remember thinking, okay, we did it, but there's just something else waiting right behind it. Like it is constant. And so it's not hotel and restaurant management, where you just figure out how to just deliver service, exceptionally, and then you're just hardwiring it. It is constant change. And so you really have to have an appetite for that, and I look at myself and I look at the leaders that I'm growing, and we all kind of like to be in control and in charge. And that's kind of where the rub comes a lot of times, because most of what we're trying to operationalize, we have zero control over. And so it's definitely not for the faint of heart. I have a lot of intestinal fortitude for healthcare, but it's very rewarding.
Yes.
There's days when I'm like, now, why did I pick healthcare again? I have to remind myself at times.
No, it picked us. It picked us. We did not pick it. It picked us. And
And
For
you start,
sure.
you look back at everything that you've accomplished, and you do have to be really, really proud. It really does
yeah.
give you a sense. Even I'm not a clinician, but I'm proud of the way that I've contributed, and the difference that I've made in growing our organization, and just how we've evolved so much in the last 20 years, and the presence that we have in our community, and how we're looked to help now with the social determinants of health, and health equity, and how are we solving for that, and just we're constantly refining what we're doing to make sure that we are at the forefront of delivering what's needed in the community.
That's incredible. So if you were to pick, like, along those lines with all of the successes and challenges that you faced over the years, like, tell us a success story that, like, took a lot of effort to get there, but is something that you guys are most proud of.
I mean, for me, and again, it's gonna sound sort of cliche at this point, but really our COVID response, and then more importantly, coming out of COVID, was just a huge success story for us, especially on the staffing side. There was just kind of the mass exodus out of healthcare, and then those that remained in healthcare, they were jumping for these massive signing bonuses, or big, hourly rate increases that just weren't sustainable. And our organization, we held pretty firm, and we did have to do bonuses and shift incentives, and things to make sure that we were covering all the bases. But because of that culture that's ingrained in our organization, we did have some people leave, and a lot opted to come back. And
Amazing.
we had agency in house for a while, especially in some key specialized areas. But by and large, we were able to say that we were agency free. Not long coming out. Not long.
Mhm.
In that recovery mode, and for the areas that we were really having difficulty recruiting, we developed. We developed mechanisms to grow our own, and we really focused on education. And so the goal would be, now to start at that high school level, and begin understanding at the high school level what's needed or what's desired, and start shaping programs that start guiding our community high schoolers towards potential careers. We opened a big academic education center. We partnered with Southeastern University, and also North Shore Technical College, one of our local technical colleges, to start developing programs where we can teach and give the clinical exposure to our own, and then recruit from that pool. So we've always done that a lot in radiology. We have a good relationship with the radiology schools, but even there, they're not teaching mammography anymore. They're not teaching surgical radiology, and cath lab. So we're having to learn how to take and develop our own curriculum to grow that. The laboratory, it was another big example. A lot of people are not opting to go to school for 4 years and come out with a med tech degree. It's kind of a profession that's not growing a whole lot. So we really changed the way we think about how we do things in the lab, and we backed all the way up to phlebotomy and said, okay, if you're a phlebotomist, what would be a next step? A lab assistant. Okay, so then we promote, high performing phlebotomists to lab assistants and expose them to more. From there, we take those high performing lab assistants and we expose them to what an MLT could look like.
That's
And
incredible.
help them with the education piece. And then from there, they opt to sit for, after their education piece and so many hours in the laboratory, they're eligible to sit for their license. So then they come out as licensed med techs, and they're sitting elbow to elbow, with bachelor's prepared peers. From there, they can become a med tech 2, or then a specialist. And then, so we really developed a whole career ladder in the laboratory that has really energized a lot of people, where before it was, I'm sorry, if you don't have a bachelor's degree in this field, you're not eligible. And
Totally.
we just thought about it differently. So we're looking across the organization, where else does that exist and how can we grow our own?
That's
So
incredible.
yeah,
Because we hear every hospital struggling with staffing needs. So you guys are really future thinkers when it comes to how are we going to manage this long term, rather than just thinking of like short term incentive based bonuses to try to get people in the door today. Like, how do we
yeah.
manage this all the way into the future, which is incredible.
And you can see the pride, and everybody's standing a little taller because they're feeling accomplished too. And at the same time, our culture is that wheel that's turning, and so that's being infused into the education process too. So it's a beautiful thing.
Well, I mean, just bringing it back to your guys' mission of supporting the community, you can interpret that as we provide healthcare services and we care for patients. But I love this, how this fits into like reaching multiple goals for you guys is staff shortages and workforce development, but also supporting the community as a place to go and get educated and provide services for them, their community members. It's just, when you see it all together like this, I can really see how every single one of these very innovative, very unique programs that you guys are putting in place really support the mission that you have as an organization.
Yeah.
It's so impressive. Yeah.
I mean, the leaders that you've had the opportunity to work with, they did their clinicals here, as rad tech students, and they, grew through each radiology modality, and then they grew into, supervisors, or, shift leaders, and then supervisors. And that's really fun for me. That's where I get really energized as a leader, to see that potential, and then just keep, giving a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And now, Tiffany, is just a huge example. She's just exploded in her growth in the last 18 months. And I think everybody in the department sees that, and those that really have that aspiration, they understand it can happen. And so that feeds that desire to continue to stay here.
Yeah,
So
positive feedback loop.
Mhm.
Tiffany is absolutely amazing. We
I
have
know.
been impressed
I was just
working.
thinking about her.
Yeah, we've been so impressed working with her, and really every member of your team. They look up to you so much. So, in closing, I just want to ask, like, we have a lot of leaders, a lot of healthcare leaders that listen to our podcast. Like, what's some advice that you can instill? Some of them are young leaders, some of them are mid-range, some of them have been leading for a long time. But what's a piece of advice that you would give a healthcare leader today?
Well, from a leadership perspective, and it took me a while. I mean, coming out of graduate school, I was, I had my suit and I had my portfolio and I had all the answers and I was armed and ready. Wow, that's so cringy. Self-awareness is really an important thing. And, even as I evolve, make sure you're not operating with biases, and try to keep the biases out of the equation. Try to keep your empathetic ear up. Bring as many people to the table, and really try to understand the situation as completely as you can before making that decision on how you're going to proceed. Lots of times, and it's still tempting to say, I know what we need to do, and this is this way we're going to do it, and it's going to be fine. That is just so much more efficient if you bring everybody in, invite them to the table, put your biases aside, and have the self-awareness to know that you don't have all the answers, and you do need to rely on everybody that has a hand in this to help shape the right direction to go. Be vulnerable. Don't ever lose the vulnerable edge, and be I'm plenty okay now to say, I have no idea. I don't know what we should do. What do you think we should do? And I think that comes across, that's so much more well received, and it's so much more refreshing to have a leader that says, I have no idea. What do you think? So back in the days when I felt like I had to have all the answers, it really fell flat. So thankful that I was able to stand up, kind of dust off my knees, and put a Band-Aid on my bruises, and kind of reflect and try to figure it out in a more authentic way. So authenticity, character, vulnerability, empathy, those are all things that I think are just critical to being a strong leader for your team.
Agree more.
Do you have any good book recommendations that we can what has helped you? I know you mentioned one in the beginning, but are there some that we can
it again? I mean,
yeah.
It might be on your bookshelf. Dust it off. Hardwiring Excellence, Quint. I mean, just some of those old principles of a handwritten thank you note to a frontline staff that you mail to their home. What an impact that makes. The times that I have done that, and the people that come and find me to say, wow, it's just such a simple thing that you can do. So Hardwiring Excellence, I recommend it to every young leader, because it just has those little secret sauce type of things that make a huge difference to your staff and to your patients. And then, one other one that comes to mind, again, cliche, but Brené Brown, Dare to Lead, and it's all about that empathy. And so I guess it made a big impact on me 7 or 8 years ago when I read it, when I did realize, oh, I do need to quit, maybe I am operating with these biases and I need to set them aside. So when I get together with my directors, we some of our better meetings are where we just kind of pull up the YouTube, we watch a little TED Talk, just, to remind us about vulnerability, or, little nuggets of things that maybe we just lose sight of. So those would be a couple of suggestions.
Incredible.
Well, thank you so much, Melonie. This was such a great conversation. I feel like we could go on and on. We hope to speak with you again, and maybe some of your team members as well. It's just been a pleasure.
This was a lot of fun, and you guys are always very inspiring to me, and y'all have been very, very generous with your time, and have taught myself and my team so much. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a lot of fun, and very, very excited about the work that we're doing together.
Yes. Well, thank you to our audience for joining us on Success in Chaos. Please be sure to like, follow, and share today's episode on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And a special thanks to the InfloHealth team for their production support today.